Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl. It's a beautiful afternoon here in sunny Florida. And by beautiful, I mean that it is not 1,000 degrees outside and you can't even go in your car without suffering third-degree burns. It's only like in the 70s, which is like awesome for down here. It almost makes you feel like you're in the fall, just a tiny smidge. And it is time for another one of my exciting, heart racing so much that your heart explodes in your chest and you're not even watching this right now because you just died at your keyboard unboxing videos. This one is for Guardians Chronicles from ELO, and you know, I didn't need another game. My whole apartment is just board games everywhere. I got all these little Taiwanese games yesterday that are all over the place, and my shelves are a disaster of games that are overflowing. I'm going to have to like reclaim another shelf that all my Blu-rays are on, but I am still excited for this game nevertheless, and I still want to get it to the table as soon as tonight if possible, but I have to say, whoo boy, there's a lot of baggage associated with Guardians Chronicles from Yellow. Most of it has to do with how the Kickstarter campaign was run and all the things that happened during the production process. A little backstory about first what the game is. Or actually, I guess I should mention who Yellow is. Yellow is a company that really came into its own and put itself on the map with King of Tokyo from Richard Garfield. I'm sure that they had some games before that, but no one cared, no one knew about them. King of Tokyo was where it's at, and since then they've released a number of games that not anywhere near as popular as King of Tokyo, but they've really put themselves out there as a company for smaller, lightweight games that can be played quickly. A lot of them are sort of family-oriented games. They have like a whole series of family games that look like books, like that are based on fairy tales, like The Tortoise and the Hare, Three Little Pigs, things like that. But they're really coming into their own as a company. I'd still say they're on the smaller side of the company scale, but not a tiny company by any stretch of the imagination. And now they're having King of New York coming out. They had Zombie 15, which was one of their first forays into larger scale games. But before they had the Kickstarter for that game and a number of other games since then, one of their very first Kickstarter projects, maybe their very first one, was Guardians Chronicles. And so what Guardians Chronicles is, it's a one versus all game with a superhero theme. One player is the Dr. Scarab, who's like a Dr. Doom type character with an army of Doombots. The other players take control of a superhero team, sort of like the Avengers. You have your Captain America archetype. There's a big bruiser, kind of like the Thing, and there's a Doctor Strange type person, and there's a lot of add-on characters that were released as part of the Kickstarter campaign as well. And it's like a tactical miniature skirmish game, objective-based, where you there's different scenarios, and Dr. Scarab has different plots, and you build the board with tiles. There seems to be a ton of games like this nowadays. And there's some interesting mechanics. Like the reason the game is called Guardians Chronicles is because that's like the name of the fictional Daily Planet type newspaper in the game, and you actually make headlines if you're doing well. Just kind of a unnecessary but kind of neat thing in the game. So that all sounds very well and good, and because it's a miniatures game, you would think it would make millions of dollars on Kickstarter. The thing was, from the very beginning, there were some weird aspects to the project that people just did not care for. One of them was that one of the main player characters in the game on the hero's side, I can't remember her name, but she's like a Supergirl type character, and she is dressed ridiculously. Absolutely ridiculously, especially nowadays. In the past couple of years, the onus of has really been on having female characters that actual females would actually want to look up to and respect and follow, and especially the rise of people being more sensitive to gender-based issues, and then they release this character, which I am not easily offended at all, and I'm not offended by this either, but I do recognize it as a very silly decision, and consequently there were a lot of people, the same type of people who complain about Lap Dance, the game, who were very incensed by this over on Board Game Geek and other areas, and in the comment section of the Kickstarter page. So that was the first sort of black eye against it. As the campaign funded, and it did fund, it didn't make as much as a lot of other miniatures projects, but it made over $100 grand. It was like $140 grand, something like that. And in fact, there was a really good feeling about the game because at the end they didn't hit all the stretch goals they wanted, but they threw in one of the stretch goals they didn't meet, like underwater tiles and areas, because sure, they wanted to be nice. So that was great. Then we get into the production process. The game was supposed to be released in December or January of 2013-14, and obviously I just got this game in the mail. It's October of 2014, so there's that. But the reason for that was production of the miniatures. Now, I wasn't really paying attention to this too much, but apparently people were furious at the miniatures that they started posting pictures of, the production level miniatures that they'd actually, I think, almost finished at that point, were completely different than the ones that we were promised and were very, very low quality. People were up in arms about it to the point where they scrapped their entire production line of miniatures and went back to the drawing board to remake them. And none of this was helped by how the community coordinator, the person actually in charge of responding on Kickstarter and making the updates in the comment sections, all those types of things, none of this was helped by the way that person acted. First off, there were long gaps with no updates and no information whatsoever. The person who was making all these comments was really snarky and was not very helpful and was just kind of telling Kickstarter backers, hey, listen, what do you expect? I mean, it's a Kickstarter. I mean, you're tough. Deal with it. I mean, really, this is the person's attitude, just in a more subtle way than what I just said. In fact, there was like major updates and important information that were put in the comment section of the page, which for anyone that's familiar with Kickstarter, if you do that, it is going to get buried in an avalanche of comments and no one can find it. I hate the way the Kickstarter comment section works, but that's the way that it is. And instead of making an update with that information, so people were furious. Then they were like, okay, if you are really having an issue with this Kickstarter, we'll give you a refund. Fantastic, sure. That's what you're supposed to do as a responsible Kickstarter creator if your project just goes completely off the rails. Well, they were only giving Kickstarter refunds to people who submitted a request and they reviewed them on a case-by-case basis. Well, what's the case? I mean, we're going in front of a judge and having to plead? These were all of the bizarre things that were happening. I never asked for a refund. I really liked the promise of the game and wanted to stick with it, and it was from Yellow. I mean, this is a known company. That's the weird thing throughout all this. I know it was like their first Kickstarter project, but still, in this whole time period, they did a lot of other ones that were very successful, like Zombie 15. So I had faith in them that they would eventually deliver the product. I just was wondering when it would finally happen. Then other weird things started happening. Some board game reviewers were getting their copies of the games like months ahead of time, like before Gen Con. It was like, what? It's very, very bizarre. I know that you have to get your copies of games out into board game reviewers' hands, and that sort of trickled down on me too and been a benefit for me as a reviewer. So I can't really complain about that, but months ahead of time, it was a very, very bizarre situation that they've totally mismanaged. But that brings us to today, where I finally have the game in hand, most of it. There's a lot of other stuff, the like Wave 2 stuff that is not been produced yet and will be coming later. I already knew that. Supposedly there's a checklist in the box of all the stuff that I still have yet to get. I just broke everything. And so I'm still excited to see what all the rest of that is. Some of the stretch goals look like, and the extra character add-ons, because I got the pledge that gave me everything, essentially, like the all-encompassing pledge. Some of that extra stuff looks better than the stuff in the base game. So take that with a grain of salt as we go through this unboxing. I know that the pre-boxing seemed to be longer than the actual unboxing, but I love talking about Kickstarter projects that go off the rails. I think it's really fascinating, and hopefully other project creators can learn some lessons by some of the missteps that happened during this campaign, because there are some projects that make way more money than this one made, but they're from companies that are fairly new and don't have any idea what they're doing. I'm looking at you, Mercs, but as far as the Myth board game. And I feel like if those people had just taken a look at the pitfalls that other companies had run into before they put their project up, or at least at any point during the process, maybe things would have been helped along and everything would have been smoother. Because even a company that's fairly large, like Yellow at this point, can make these kind of mistakes. But anyways, you're here for the unboxing. Maybe you're just here to hear me rant. But let's go ahead and get to that. I'll make it as brief as possible, and I will play the game probably tonight and possibly again tomorrow, and hopefully get up my review soon after that. So let's get to it. Alright, it is time for this unboxing video to commence! This is Guardians Chronicles from Yellow Games, and like I said in my intro, this isn't everything. There should be at least one more wave of stuff coming later with all the extra add-on heroes and villain units and tiles, things like that. This should just be the base game and maybe a couple extra things. I'm not entirely sure, but there should be a list in here. All right, so let's see. By the way, I do love one versus all games. It's one of the things, one of my favorite genres of games. Ah, here we go. List right on top. Let's take a quick look. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there we go. 3 waves. So, wow, tons of extra stuff coming later. Did I get the t-shirt? I don't know. I can't remember. I probably was a maniac and got the t-shirt, but we'll see. Okay, here's the base game. So I guess that's all it is really just the base game, but okay. There it is in all its glory. Guardians Chronicles. I mean, the things like the cover art were one of the things that really attracted me to the game in the first place. Because it really does, much the same way that Sentinels of the Multiverse, despite the lackluster artwork itself, it makes it feel like a comic book, which I really appreciate. So here we go. Whoop. Most board game component lovers just cringed. Alright, here we are. Well, let's get a better look, I guess, without the glare. See, look at that. It's just really good. Really high quality art. I really like that style. And I want Yellow to make more games like this big box games and kind of go out of their wheelhouse of the small box games. As good as they are, most of the ones I've played. Not Night of the Grand Octopus. That was garbage. Here we go. Scenario booklets. This is something I mentioned in my intro. There are more and more games like this. And I don't know. I guess the popularity of games like Descent and gee, I don't know. I don't know how many of these have been really, really popular, but I mean, we have this. We have Sentinels Tactics, which, by the way, I also have. These games are really quite similar to each other, so I'll be interested to see how they stack up against one another. Here's the actual rule book. I hope this has been updated because I actually sat down to play this game with a certain notorious board game reviewer, and he was the one trying to learn the rules, and it was unplayable according to him. So we never actually played it. All right, tiles. Beautiful tiles. Really cool. Actually, look very similar to Omega Protocol tiles. That's another example that I was thinking of. Tokens. Good quality. Pretty cool. Punch out easy. More. Tubes. Tubes with mysterious viscous fluid. I guess these are like hostages. Things like that. More tiles. It's interesting that they're just kind of floating around in the box. Yeah, the box is clearly too big for the stuff that it has, and it has one of those crappy Fantasy Flight style inserts, but there will be tons of expansion content coming, so maybe that's planning ahead. Well, before we get to the cards, dice. Okay, cool. Engraved dice. They learned their lesson from King of Tokyo. Well. Alright. Okay. There's that. Yeah, let's pop straight to the miniatures, shall we? These look like the Doombots, the minions of Dr. Scarab. Also the same quality of Omega Protocol, apparently. Let me see if I can focus that just a tiny bit better with my poor focusing capabilities. Maybe not. Alright, but you get the idea. These guys don't look like much. Are they all the same sculpt? Yeah, I guess so. Let's get that out of the way. Okay. And we'll take a look at... Are these more minions, different sculpts? Interesting. I don't know really what's going on there. He's on a girder sticking out of the ground. I guess that one was not supposed to be bent that far. Oh, great. Bendy miniatures. Okay. Great. Let's see. More bad guys. These are cool. Those are a little bit cooler. tiny, tiny miniatures. I'm used to at least the zombie side miniatures, which are a bit bigger, even for the zombies. Here's some nasty people. That looks like one of the villains you have to fight against. Also bendy. Look at that base. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, man. I'm glad to see that all that extra time redoing the miniatures was well spent. That looks cool, though. That's Golden Boy. That's... What's his name? I don't even know what his name is. Captain Liberty or something. The Liberty Patrol is the name of the group. Probably the character I'm going to want to play as... I can't remember his name. He's like the Doctor Strange guy. He's like something Warlock. We'll find out in a second when we go through the character cards. There's Dr. Scarov. He probably has the coolest miniature. That's pretty cool. These look to be Dr. Hold on, I know you can't see him. Dr. Scarov's hench people here. I think, if I remember correctly from the very brief rules explanation we tried to go through, that's the president's daughter. Yeah, okay, she's twerking. That's probably another thing people will complain about. Who complained about her? This is the character I was talking about, who was scantily clad, although also bendy. Jeez. But you can't really tell. If she was painted, you'd be able to tell just how scantily clad she is. I'm sure it shows on a character card, which we'll go to right now. I suppose I'll open this over here, since this isn't unboxing. Why don't they just put them in real baggies? Sergeant Freedom. This is like the rookie side, I believe. They all each have a rookie side, and then their sort of ultimate side. So there's Sergeant Freedom in all of his glory. Or I'm sorry. Whoa, what's that then? Well, that's okay. Rookie and veteran, I think. So then here's the normal one for Sergeant Freedom. That's how he looks on the box and all the promotional media. Missions. Here we go. Here she is. Supernova. That's her name. Look at that. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like every meme you've ever seen about like how fantasy women are armored, just crystallized into one card. But still, you know, I'm not offended by it. I just think it's kind of silly that they did it. And she's farting fire. So there's that in a rookie form. But see, when you're no longer a rookie, you don't fart fire, and you have more clothes on. Interesting. Golden Boy, rookie. By the way, Golden Boy reminds me of what's his name? He was there was a comic book called Wetworks, where all the characters had like this supernatural alien gold goo that covered them. This is what this guy reminds me of. That's not a bad thing. I liked Wetworks. I probably should go back and read whatever I didn't read of it. Adam Spell, that's the guy's name. The Warlock, Doctor Strange type character. Cool. This is a normal one. And here's the bad guys. We'll just go through. Here's Dr. Scarov. She looks like Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe. Mutated Allison. Yeah, that's the president's daughter, I guess, gets mutated. Here's like those henchmen with the colored hair. Kinoichi. Androids, gynoids, arachnoids. Yeah, they're all different types of robots that they use. Okay, that's all the character stuff. Here is headlines. This is one of the sort of the kitschy, sort of fun parts of the game. Oops. So, yeah, you make headlines like here, Sergeant Freedom. I just dropped a bunch of them. Here, Heroic Leader or Sergeant Freedom saved no one. And you'll like, just dropped all kinds of stuff. You actually make the headlines, put them out, depending on how it actually, the scenario played out, things like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's probably completely unnecessary, but it's a neat little thematic thing. Allison Anderson giving back to her parents. Yes, we can get back to work. Okay. Very, very interesting. And let's leave that stuff on the floor for now. I hope my beagle doesn't wake up. Let's open up the packs of cards. Oh, come on. All right. To hell with this. Whoosh! All right, that didn't really help. I really didn't want to damage the cards. Actually, here, I could probably put this back like this for now. Alright. So each character has their own like deck of cards, your Sergeant Freedoms, and you get all the abilities, and there's rookie cards and veteran cards. I'm not going to go through all of them. But there's like action selection. There's Golden Boys cards. And you have a little comic book page, which I think is cool. Supernova, Adam Spell, all that kind of stuff. And then this one should be Dr. Scarov's event cards and all the nasty stuff you might have to deal with. Trap cards for whoever's playing that character, because it's a 1 versus all game. Wound cards. And all the different events, things like that. So that's really it. That's all that comes in the base game. Although that's a decent amount of stuff for a base game of anything, despite how big the box is. Remember, I've got tons of extra stuff coming in, so definitely going to give this one quite a few shots, and I'll probably hold on to it at least, like, even if I don't like it, I'll at least wait until I get the rest of the stuff and then try it again, see if any of the expansion stuff really helps it out. But, by the way, I sound kind of defeatist, but I'm hoping that it's excellent. We're just going to have to wait and see. There are so many misgivings about the project that I'm a little hesitant about it, but I'm still going to give it as fair a shake as any game that I play. That's been an unboxing of Guardians Chronicles from Yellow Games. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day in every way. Take care.